Our hourly rates are going up again. Well, this is one of those videos I hate making because I don't really like raising hourly rates because it restricts access from people being able to sort out their cars. So, you know, when I raise my hourly rate, it's not like I'm trying to discourage people from bringing their cars in here. I want to see these cars live another day. What I don't like, though, is when we can't make enough money to do things like pay for gas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, at this point in time, 2 of my employees were due for a raise. I am looking at hiring an office manager. So, if anybody's interested in, working here as an office manager, it's a roughly $60,000 a year job, and you need to have previous experience running a Mercedes repair shop and being willing to relocate it. And I am willing to spend some money on relocation, but I'm in the process of interviewing an office manager. It's just that I would be open to other candidates just to see what my options are. And if I do find somebody better, may the best man or woman get the job. But this is neither here nor there. I've wanted to give my employees a raise for a while. Plus, with the cost of fuel and the cost of auto transport and the cost of, everything from freight to shop supplies, I've had to raise our hourly rates a little bit. But the new hourly rate structure is not quite going to be what you'd expect. I'm not doing an incremental linear hourly raise from $118 an hour to $140 or $150 or whatever. Actually, what we are doing, and I figured this out after studying Mercedes time guides, is I'm going to break my hourly work instead down into units of labor. And so a unit of labor represents a fraction of an hour and costs about $30. Now, I still have not determined how efficiently this system is going to work, but after studying it for about 2 weeks, I determined that it's an extremely fair way to deal with the difficulties of increasing labor rates and the difficulties sometimes of having 2 or 3 technicians work on a car. Now, let me explain. When you get an hourly rate from my shop, it represents the entire job from start to finish. Before Wesley and Jesse were trained and before I had things like lifts and could work as efficiently as I do, the hourly rate was representative of the amount of time that it took me to complete a job. It wasn't the estimated time. It wasn't the amount of time that I would have to spend, doing a specific task plus going to the store, whatever. It was just the time it took to finish the job from point A to point B. Well, now that we're more experienced, the jobs get done faster. But what does that do? It means that the time to finish the job from point A to point B has drastically decreased. So our time to finish a 123 front end used to be something like 10 hours. Now that job time has been cut down to about 5 to 6 hours on a non-rusty car, which is pretty amazing if you think about it, how fast we're working through some of these issues. So essentially what I am doing is setting up these units of labor so that they represent either a 5 or 10 minute chunk of time, and we multiply these units of labor by our cost per unit to determine what a job will cost. So that means that if it takes me something like 60 minutes to do a job with 2 technicians or 3 technicians, sometimes like putting an exhaust in, I'm not going to bill for 3 hours. I'm just going to bill for the 6 units of labor necessary to do that job. I'm not going to worry about saying, well, we had an extra technician here that came in for 5 minutes and another time one of them held it up for 30 minutes. So even though I am increasing the cost on paper to get something done, if I raise that hourly cost, I could commit more hands to the job to get it done faster, thereby making the job more efficient and a little bit quicker. Let's look at some jobs that we have increased our efficiency on using 2 technicians. Here's a good example. Subframe mounts on a 107. This job used to take us about 6 hours for one guy working by himself, because so much rigorous setup and walking around and going and doing this had to be done. But if you have 2 people on this job, where one person is handing the other one tools, one person is verifying that the jack is in the right position, while the other one is removing and installing the motor mounts, it doesn't cut the time down. It doesn't cut the time down by an hour or 2 hours. It cuts it in half, which is amazing. So if I have to take this job and bill for it at the old hourly rate, which would be $118 an hour times roughly 6 hours, the job ends up being about $700. But with the new hourly rate, it ends up using units of labor. If it takes me 18 units of labor, it ends up being about $540. Which is good. And then as a group and a team, we can move on to the next job. This is very good because what it does is it allows for some additional training too, because I do have to hire new technicians so that we have a technician like Jesse or Wesley or myself performing all the critical operations, while we have a training tech provide the supporting operations and doing the tasks that are less dangerous or could screw up the car less if there's a problem, to put it bluntly. So increasing the hourly rate will allow me to get more technicians in here, but it will also allow us to do each job more efficiently and turn over the cars faster. Now, some people have complained about the amount of time that it takes to finish a car. I don't think this is going to change in major engine out jobs or major thorough restorations, but in cars that need 10 to 20 to 30 items, like the typical low mileage 107, it will drastically decrease the turnaround time and incentivize the technicians and myself by not only giving us a higher hourly labor rate, but by rewarding us for our efficiency in completing certain tasks. And because of this, I have implemented an equity sharing program with Jesse and Wesley and whichever technician we bring in next, where if they perform the job efficiently and correctly with no mistakes, they get a 5% share of the labor turnover after the job is complete. Now, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I want them to stay. Because training techs is a pain in the butt. I had to do this right before COVID. COVID made me lose half of my workforce. It's very difficult to train 2 people in 6 months to be proficient at working on Classic Mercedes. But now I'm in a position where I can actually leave them alone. I can leave Wesley alone and say, hey, get this timing chain done. I can leave Jesse alone and I could say, hey, Jesse, I need this front end rebuilt. You know, if you need me for some heavy lifting or to hold something in place or to press bushings, then call me. And this is another good example of how this system is going to work. Let's say Jesse is working on the front end of a 240D. He removes the lower control arm. He needs the lower control arm bushings pressed in, but he's also busy removing the guide rod and removing the other lower control arm. Well, he would give the control arm to me. I would knock the old bushings out, press the new bushings in, make sure that they're perfectly centered, make sure that if any cleanup needs to be done on the control arm, it gets done, and I hand it back to Jesse right when he's pulling the other control arm out so that I can service that one and he can begin putting the other side back in. And all of it is bundled into one hourly rate so that I don't have to go back and say, well, I helped out for 30 minutes here and an hour there. So I'm not saying that I'm a genius, but this is going to really help us. Anyway, please like, share, and subscribe and tap the bell for notifications. And if any of you have any questions about this, especially if you have cars scheduled in the future, please let me know. This new hourly rate is going to be applicable to any cars that arrive starting May 16th or later. And customers that request estimates can and will still get accurate estimates. But I don't think this is going to affect costs as much as one would think. It doesn't mean that I'm doubling the amount of money that it's going to cost to get a repair done either. It's just going to represent an incremental increase to reward us for our efficiency and our accuracy getting certain critical and difficult jobs done, while making sure that we also get paid fairly and that I can compensate Jesse and Wesley and any other hires that I have in the face of rising inflation. See you guys in the future. And remember, you can always learn to work on the car yourself, and we're here to help you, especially if you're a Patreon.